Hi everyone, I believe that you have completed the program learning outcomes video. So you have learned about program learning outcomes, the numbers of program learning outcomes that you need to develop, and how it can be mapped to the MQF learning cluster. So right now in this video, we will go into a little bit deeper and look into course learning outcome. So in this video, I will be explaining to you what is course learning outcome. We will have the first touch at the most surface level to try to understand what is course learning outcome before we go into a detailed explanation on how we should write a good course learning outcome. So before that, let us have a quick recap of what we have learned in the past video. So in the previous video, we have learned about what's meant by program educational objective, which is measuring what the students can achieve or what are the skills that the students can demonstrate after 3 to 5 years graduated from the program. After that, we also learn about program learning outcome, which is measured upon the graduation. So right now, we want to measure about course learning outcome, which is the scale that the students can demonstrate upon completions of a course. So usually, course learning outcome is measured using the assessment that we have designed, such as assignment, quiz, test, final exam, lab work, and project. So in this video, at the end of the video, you should be able to understand what is course learning outcome. Okay, so what is course learning outcome? Again, course learning outcome measure what the students are able to do at the end of the course. So at the end of your course, what the students can demonstrate, what kind of ability or skill the students can be demonstrate is what you're going to state in your course learning outcome. So course learning outcome should be student focused and not the instructional technique or the course content. So remember, course learning outcome should focus on the performance that the students can demonstrate at the end of the course, rather than what kind of teaching technique that you'll be using or what are the topics that you'll be covering in that course. We should be student focused rather than the instructor focus. Course learning outcome need to be explicitly communicate to your students. Means that your student should be able to know what are the course learning outcome that they're going to achieve at the end of the course for that particular task or the topic that you have covered in the class when you're doing the delivery. So for example, this is one of the assignments that I have designed before. So on the assignment cover page itself, I have mentioned that the learning outcomes that are going to achieve using this assignment. Like for example, the student is doing branding with me. So the students will know that by completing this assignment, so they will be able to achieve 2 learning outcomes over here. So first is analyze branding strategy, and then present an oral presentation. Okay, so you can see that by doing this learning outcome, they will know that what's the thing that they need to do already basically. So to achieve the first learning outcome, student basically will need to do a group project. So you can see that I'm using a group project to measure the achievement of this learning outcome. And similarly, the students are required to do a group presentation. Why? Because of the second learning outcome that is intended to be achieved through the assignment, which is to present an oral presentation. Okay, so you can see that when we communicate explicitly our learning outcome, the students will be able to know what type of assignment or assessment that they're going to go through. So learning outcome will help to outline the overall learning process that students will go through. And this is one of the important functions of learning outcome. Rather than we just use the learning outcome for an internal purpose for us to know what we need to deliver only. It should be a two-way communication to the student, so that students will be able to know what is the thing that they're going to learn and what kind of skills they should be able to demonstrate at the end of the day. Then secondly, if you compare the course learning outcome, sometimes some of the lecturers might be confused with instructional objective and course learning outcome. If you look at instructional objective, it basically stated what the lecturers want to achieve in that course. Okay, so if you look at instructional objective, it will wrote something like this. In this class, we will discuss, analyze, and apply different models of effective college learning. Explore teaching and learning implications associated with students' diversity. discuss and evaluate different teaching strategy. So basically, if you look at instructional objective, it spell out what the lecturer need to do in the class at the end of the class. If you compare to course learning outcome, it wrote this way. At the end of the course, you will be able to compare and contrast behavioral, cognitive, and social interaction model of learning. Design and deliver a lesson which address a variety of students' learning style. Map the teaching and learning strategy for different learning domains, learning outcome domains. So if you compare the instructional objective with course learning outcome, you'll be able to see that the course learning outcome actually spell out what are the performance standards that you expect the students to achieve at the end of the course. If you compare the instructional objective, it just spell out what the job that the instructor or the lecturers need to complete at the end of the course. So it's obviously two different things. So instructional objective is instructor focus, while course learning outcome is student focus. So this is something that you have to bear in mind when you want to design your course learning outcome. Yeah, it must be student focus. Then the second thing when you want to design a course learning outcome is Bloom taxonomy. Yeah, so all your learning outcome must be able to map to the learning domain in the Bloom or other taxonomy. So we have different learning domain over here. We have like the cognitive domain, we have the psychomotor domain, we have the affective domain. Okay, so you have to identify which domain that you are trying to tackle. In our next video, we will be discussing about this different type of learning domain and what are the appropriate strategy that you should use to measure the learning outcome in a different learning domain. So in overall, you have to understand that there are 3 different learning domains and you have identified carefully so that you will know that how you should craft your course learning outcome. So the example that I show you over here is the learning domain for cognitive level, which is for the intellectual activities. Yeah. So if you look at the Bloom cognitive domain, the Bloom taxonomy for cognitive domain, it has 6 levels over here. From remember, understand, apply, analyze, evaluate to create. The remember is the lowest level, which is the so-called the most basic level of the learning domain, until the most complicated one, which is create. So in your course learning outcome, you must base on which level of learning domain that you want to tackle, and then use the correct action word to indicate it in your course learning outcome, so that you will know that until what level are you trying to test the students, until what level you expect the students to perform. Is it as simple as just remember, or as complicated as you want them to create something? Okay, so this is the importance of course learning outcome. If you spell it correctly, it will help you to determine the level of difficulties and the level of performance standards that you are expected from the students. So that's why when you're trying to express your course learning outcome that time, you must make sure that it is measurable. Yeah, it's measurable and observable. If you compare to PEO and PLO that you have learned in the past, PEO and PLO accept unmeasurable verbs or terms, such as you can use understand. However, when you come to course learning outcome at time, this is not allowed. You have to use something measurable. Yeah, you have to use something measurable so that all your course learning outcome can be demonstrated and measured by your assessment strategy. Yeah, to prove that the students have actually attain the scale or the performance that you have expected for that particular course. So this is an example of a course learning outcome. Yeah. So in the course learning outcome, you will see that in this course, there are 4 learning outcomes that the students should be able to demonstrate at the end of the course. Like identify the economic structures, identify the basic principle, and apply super mathematical tools, and apply basic principle of microeconomics. So obviously, this is a course learning outcome for the microeconomics subject. So this will bring you to the next level of thinking. Like for example, how many CLO should you prepare for a course? What are the components that you should have in the course learning outcome? Okay, so we will cover all those key questions in the next coming video, where we will be talking about the characteristics of good course learning outcome. So I hope that this video have given you some brief insight of what is course learning outcome all about. Okay, so we will discuss in detail the characteristics of good course learning outcome in the next coming video. Stay tuned.